So it is 5:30. My name is Megan Henderson, and I'm here to answer any questions that you guys may have for your city manager. Assistant City Manager Tony Kane is also here. So between the two of us, we will try to answer whatever questions you have. And I don't have a presentation. This is really just about being available to you guys. So I will take the first question whenever anybody's ready.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir.
I know it's in the paper, I skim read it, and then I plan to go back and read it thoroughly. And it always has its own way before I do.
Whether that's at your house too?
Why do we go off on water rates?
Oh, wow, okay. So, let me see. So, let me give you a paper. This will go into more detail. And there are folks here who've heard this, so y'all just, talk quietly amongst yourselves. But basically, our water rates have stayed unchanged. We made a $5 adjustment 4 or 5 years ago. Outside of that, our rates have remained essentially unchanged for the last 25 years or so. We have been paying what we want to pay instead of what it would cost to run an effective, reliable water system. Over time, we have underfunded this system to the point that it is borderline unreliable for everyday business and personal use. Folks who live west of Chobe can count on their water being off often, multiple times a month, being on a boil water notice multiple times a month. If you took this set of conditions and dropped it on a quote-unquote normal water system, people would riot in the streets. But we have slowly become accustomed to bad service, and we have not necessarily noticed as that service has progressively gotten worse and worse and worse over time. Every year, when we look at rates, we have to, well, if we look at rates, but presumably every year when we pass a budget, that budget includes an assumption about water rates. So every year we have a choice. And the choice historically has been, do we want better water or good water, or do we want cheap rates? And we have chosen cheap for decades, to the point that we now have no longer have that choice. It's no longer a choice between good and cheap. We can have neither. Last year we lost $1 million in the Water and Sewer Revenue Fund. Our costs to provide worsening service exceeded our revenues by $1 million. Just to continue to provide ever worsening service but break even doing it, we had to raise rates by $1 million. And so at some point, you have to say, what is going to be rock bottom? What is going to be the worst that we're willing to let this get before we do what it takes to make it better? And this year, the council decided this is the year.
Are you talking about the water lines?
I'm talking about whether when you turn the tap in your house, A, something comes out at all, B, what comes out is clear and smells good, and all of that. And again, y'all, some of y'all have heard me say this 1,000 times, so again, just, whatever. My first job out of college was working for the city of Marlin. I have been in a community that's in worse shape than we are. In Marlin, they were really worried about raising rates, and they were worried about costs, and they were worried about running off business. I will tell you that in Marlin, the water situation became so bad that every business in the industrial park closed during the 4 years that I was there in the year 2000. every one of them. And I can name them. When we talked to industrial businesses whose increase in water rates was the greatest of everybody's, and we talked to them and said, look, this is what we're looking at, that it is going to be super expensive to dig ourselves back out of this ditch. And they said, you know what's really expensive? Not having any water. Having the water go off when you've got a big piece of equipment that's full of concrete, or you're in the middle of a process and you lose the entire batch, or you have to shut a shift down and send everybody home. Having the water that is less reliable than we have now is far worse, more expensive, more harmful to business, more harmful to residents. And I promise you that is a choice. So what we did, so that's all the how did we get here? Why are we in the situation that we're in? That's how we got here. So we took a look, and we said what we need to do is we need to raise water rates to the point that we are no longer losing money, but we are also making the changes to the system that are going to make the system reliable and more operable over the future, which in turn is going to, some of those costs are going to offset. I mean, we have a significant amount of water loss due to leaks that we can't stop. We are hemorrhaging water. We can't stop that without spending the money, and the engineers estimate $55 million. It hurts to say it. $55 million to replace the cast iron and asbestos cement water lines in this town. We don't get a significant reduction in water loss until we replace crumbling 100-year-old pipes with relatively new pipes. And even then, I want everybody to understand, even then, we're not going to be in a situation where there are no more water leaks. You know, in expansive clay soil like we have, even a PVC line will crack here and there. But, you know, where 20, 30 years ago we may have had 100 leaks a year, now we have 300.
Are we gonna try to fix that on rates, or do we need a bond issue?
We need any number of things, but until we have an idea of how much money we can borrow and how much money we need to borrow, the answer is both. We can't fix it with a bond issue. We can't bond at $55 million. And the ongoing operating costs, if they're not sustained by rates, then what are we doing? We have approached the Texas Water Development Board and asked them for $30 million in loans through a program that has 70% loan forgiveness. The rate increase that we have already passed does not include any money for debt service. An anticipated second rate increase that would go into effect around October of next year is anticipated to include the amount of debt service that we think we'll need for the first set of line replacement work. Once we find out from Water Development Board if and how much money we will get, if and how much of that would be forgiven, how much do we have to process in terms of debt service. This current rate increase does not include that at all, because we don't know what those numbers are yet, and we're not going to raise people's water rates over what we think we might have to do. What we've done is we have brought us up to break even, and we have added enough to add a complete new crew to do nothing but replace water lines.
Did you look at expenses? Could any of them be cut?
No.
What do you have charged the water department that maybe should be charged to a different department?
The answer is the opposite of that. The answer is we have been pirating manpower and equipment from the wastewater department and underfunding wastewater because we've been scared to raise water rates. We have been underfunding the street department because instead of the water department paying to replace the street every time we dig out a utility cut, that's coming out of the streets department's budget. When I went through and looked and we started doing cost accounting and figuring out what are we actually spending to provide this service, what we found is that other departments were subsidizing water significantly already.
Residential and commercial, are they the same rates?
No, residential are cheaper.
Cheaper. And the more you use, the more you charge?
essentially is.
Well, that's just backwards from retail, because retail, one costs this, 10 you get a little discount, 100 you get a big discount. So water is just the
Yes.
opposite.
So we consulted the National Water and Wastewater, now I'm gonna forget the name. There's a whole rate setting methodology, there's a whole industry around this. We followed a process. But the biggest issue is that small amounts of water are not particularly expensive to provide. It is a lot more expensive to provide water in a bigger pipe at a higher rate than it is to provide a small amount of water.
A gallon of water is a gallon of water.
No, sir, not at a 14-inch meter, not in a 14-inch pipe. Dramatically more expensive to serve the industrial park with the kind of volume and pressure that they require than it is to serve a neighborhood.
I'll take your word for it.
Yes, sir. And in fact, in the previous rate structure, we charged it was about $45 a month. It was a quote-unquote minimum water bill, right? So the highest segment of consumers, residential users, use 1,000 gallons or less. 33% or so of residential users use 1,000 gallons a month or less. So that user in the previous rate structure was paying $45 for 1,000 gallons of water. Meanwhile, IKO, which uses 1.9 million gallons of water a month, was paying on average $4 per 1,000 for that. So under the previous structure, that resident was paying 11 times more for water. They're not paying 11 times less now. Now we're at parity. So if we look at the percentage of total water used by residents, residents are now paying that percentage of total water. All of the residential bills together are paying for that percentage of the total water that they use. Previously, residents were paying, and I don't have those numbers in front of me, but I can supply them to you. Residents were paying something like 60% of the bills and using 45% of the water.
I've got a meter that costs me $80 a month, whether I use a gallon of water or not.
Yes, sir. And you know that because you have that meter and you pay for it to be connected to our system, that unless you live west of Cho and it's every third Thursday, when you turn the faucet, something will come out. And you also know that if you go on vacation and you use no water, you won't be charged for water you didn't use. There's no such thing as free water. If your minimum bill included 2,000 gallons of water, you paid for 2,000 gallons, which as we've established, most of the people who were paying that and paying that minimum bill were not using that much water. Now, if you save water, if you make some small change to your household and you use slightly less water than you did before, your bill is going to be less. And that matters. You know, it matters that people's conservation is going to end up saving them money and having a practical impact on their life.
So the rates affected everybody in Hillsborough.
Yes.
Everybody.
Yes.
You don't think that'll hurt the future businesses coming in here?
Not as much as a worse water system would, not at all, and I've seen it happen. We are not in a place where we have a choice. We are not in a place where we can have an okay water system and low water bills. That is not a choice. I agree with you, that would be better. It would be better for business, it would be better for residents, it'd be better for me. My life would be a lot more pleasant. We don't have that choice. We could have done this gently, and if we had done this gently over decades and made replacements as we went, we wouldn't be coming from so far behind now. And I'm not faulting any individual decision makers in the past. People were solving all kinds of challenges back in those days. It's not like there was a time when everything was sunny and we had trouble closing the closet doors because there was so much money, right? Like, people were wrestling with what they were wrestling with. But the end result of all of those decisions is that today, we don't have the choice. We don't have the choice of having a good, reliable water system and low rates.
Megan, I heard is IKO went from 10,000 to 40,000. Is that correct?
It shouldn't be, no, their water would not have tripled.
Okay, I just heard it from somebody.
No, it shouldn't be. And if you wanna wait, I can do some calculations and tell you what it would have, because I have their usage here and I have the rates.
I know the country club struggles from month to month, and I imagine your water bill's gonna really hurt. Every business in Hillsborough has got a price increase.
Yes,
I hope we don't lose it.
I hope so too.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
But as a business,
Yes, ma'am.
my biggest fear, we have 2 hair salons. When I hear there's a water break, I just pray it isn't downtown. We have extra water in jugs because we'll have people with color on their hair and there's no water. You have to take care of those people. So for me, I'll pay the money so I can sleep better, and when the business is run, then I'm more satisfied to have a business.
Yes, ma'am.
And our water bill has gone up in the salons, but it's not breaking the balance.
No, we have to make adjustments.
I'd like to be less, of course, but it's not cheap.
But I think a business knows what they need to run their business, and you have to.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Yes,
Now,
ma'am.
we're talking about water,
Yes, ma'am.
and I'm not trying to, because I was here for your water meetings, and you explained it well, and I appreciated it, and I went home and explained it to my husband, and we understood it. Then I got my water bill the last 2 months. And this month it just came in at the end of August, because that's the cycle I'm on. Year over year, because I went and printed the graph, I have it with me. Our usage was down 1,800 gallons.
Okay.
That's a pretty significant saving.
Yes,
I've
ma'am.
worked really hard at it. Year over year, my bill went up $12.
Yes, ma'am.
That makes no sense to me. I understand that the bills went up. I have no problem with that. I don't understand working hard to get our usage down, letting the lawn die, not watering it all this summer, and still having it go up. That's difficult.
What was your total usage this last month?
This last month, 6,100 gallons. That's what it says, honest.
How many people live in your house?
I thought it was outrageous, but the lady, when
I will tell you
that, oh no ma'am, that's what it is.
I will tell you, my usage last month, the 3 people living in the house was 1,900 gallons.
Yeah, I
So there's something going on.
I thought that was odd.
There's something going on, and what I bet, so the very first thing that we did, /are doing with the water, the new water revenue, is that we are installing receivers on the 3 water towers that will collect the automatic meter readings from the new water meters that we installed a couple of years ago. We will now get a reading from that meter every minute or so. I mean, just constantly. And so what will happen is, after we've had a couple of months of usage and we know what everybody's normal is, the system will begin to kick out an alert if your meter is doing something crazy. I would wonder whether you got a slow leak sign.
That's what I thought.
Something, and we can find that out, because we can go, right now, we have to go physically to the meter and pull a report. But once we do that, it will go back and give us all of that usage history. We'll be able to tell if your meter is running in the middle of the night when you're asleep, something's leaking somewhere, and it may be going into a drain, it may be I had an issue with my washing machine. We never would have found it, right? So call the water department, we will run a report and look at your usage and see if we can try to figure out what's going on. And then, it'll be kind of going around the house and trying to just check.
Because that's what I've had my husband doing, is going around the house and checking all the toilets and
Yeah,
checking all the faucets.
Something's not right.
You know, it's just, it's killing us. And I
You're supposed to find out if it's on the-
It's like he said,
It's not, or yours.
like he said, you know, I know the
Well,
water's
if
going
it's
up,
going
and
up
I
here, it's not on the
understand
city side, it's gotta be on the other
it,
side.
and I know why, but $135 a month is gonna kill me.
Yeah, no, something, that usage doesn't sound like everything's working the way it should.
And that's what,
Yeah.
I just couldn't understand it.
Yeah, you gotta make some.
That's what I thought.
I have beautification things to talk about.
Yes, ma'am.
Well, I'm sure I'm sure I added what I'm gonna say, but our water's gone up, give us something. Give us something. Put the dumpsters over on that parking lot where they belong. Just,
So-
they don't think it'll cost that much, just move the dumpsters for us.
I will
You don't know, at
check,
some
I will check on that.
We were told the dumpsters were going to be put over on that parking lot away from the corner of the courthouse.
Yes.
Give us this, give us, when your code enforcement guy can look at the curbs and see where all this stuff is going up in the curbs. The people are not taking care of their curbs, they redid Park Drive and now it's starting to look crummy. We're just talking about enforcement, it's not gonna cost a lot extra.
I know exactly what you're talking about. There have been multiple times when I wished I had like a door hang in my car. Cause I'm driving by and I'm seeing people blow grass clippings out into the street where they're just gonna sit there and thatch and start growing their own little plants.
So I don't know if it's a public awareness campaign we need to do,
Yeah.
coding for something, but it will just not cost so much, but it will make our community better.
Yes.
I have a question about code enforcement.
Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell me, a property owner has a fence running along the side of his property, a field or whatever, but there's a fence there. Who is responsible for the 4, 5, 6 feet from that fence to the road?
The property owner.
The property.
The property owner is responsible to the street. They are responsible for maintenance to the street. And they are responsible for not letting their stuff get into the street.
Okay.
So the blowing of grass clippings and stuff like that, that's why it's a problem.
Street. Street. So you guys taking care of that?
I do not. Maybe they're hiding just outside the picture.
The neighbors, my husband, the neighbors on partial sides, will go out and they will mow across the street. I know you guys mow across Franklin from your house. Well, my neighbor at the corner of Givens and Carr mows the field from the fence to the road. Because she said if she doesn't, then you've got critters and it's destroying the road.
Yeah.
Now, I will grant you that a lot of that is, again, the soil and you can't help the clay and the roads are gonna buckle. I get that. But our road is already washed out, the two ends of Gibbons. That's another one. It's getting to the point now where it's washing out in the middle. We can't keep making, pretty soon Gibbons is gonna be one block for this house, and one block for this house, and one block for this house. Because the roads are washing out. And they're washing out because the grass is getting in them and destroying the asphalt from either side.
Right. Can you give me a call tomorrow and we'll talk about addresses and stuff? And in some cases, so our process for code enforcement is to engage with the property owner first. We are not out trying to write people tickets and come down hard. We're trying to get solutions. And the best way to get solutions is to find out what's going on with somebody, find out that, let them know that it's their responsibility. In some cases, people really don't know that even though that's right of way, they are responsible to keep it mowed up into the edge of the street. Once everybody understands what they're supposed to do, then we'll say, look, how long is it going to take you to get this done? If they say 3 years, we would say not going to
Yeah, probably not a bit.
right? If they say there's something going on, we're gonna have to find somebody, I don't know, whatever. And also the police department, or I'm sorry, public safety department has a trailer full of property maintenance tools in the form of a tool library that people are able to borrow. You can check out a weed eater, you can check out a lawnmower. If you don't have the equipment to maintain whatever it is, you can just borrow it from us and bring it back, no problem. So once we find out what the deal is, 99 times out of 100, or maybe 80 times out of 100, let's say, we're able to make a deal with that property owner. It's just, then sometimes they don't do what they said they were gonna do. So at that point, then we have to go back. Well, in the meantime, the neighbor says, nothing has happened. Maybe we've had 3 conversations with that property owner. Maybe we've gone back and forth and they've set a goal and they've missed the goal and we've now made a backup goal. Well, at that point, it's time for us to maybe start, at this point, maybe you're gonna have to give a citation, maybe there's gonna be some teeth in this thing. But that's why sometimes, even if we're engaging, it may look like nothing is happening because we're trying to work
Trying to do
with
it.
Yeah.
Where the road is, and it's been this way since we moved in 6 years ago. Givens ends, then it starts up again. There is one property there. We were always told, when we first moved in, we were told, the road used to go through here. I don't know, I wasn't here, but that's what we were told. And people walked because there's not any traffic, or there's not as much traffic as there could be on that road because it doesn't go all the way through. So people walk that way. Well, that's now there's somebody else living there. They put big private property, do not trespass signs there. Okay, but I thought a portion of that was easement. Can we not walk there?
Right,
What are the rules?
So I think we're gonna have to talk about this tomorrow.
Okay.
So if you'll give the office a call, so we'll need to go in and see if the road used to go through and doesn't any longer, there may have been an abandonment of right of way,
Okay.
such that is now private property. And I can't tell you
Right.
just off the cuff whether that's the case or not, but we can go in and take a look, and that would govern what needs to happen.
And fair enough. One more thing, and then I'll shut up and let somebody else have a chance. As I said, dead ends on both ends, or Franklin. Excuse me, I forgot what street I lived on. Carr, dead ends on both ends off of Gibbons. How hard would it be to put a no outlet, dead end, something at the corner of Gibbons and Franklin?
Harder than you would think,
But
but not so
people-
hard that we can't do it.
People come down Gibbons and they get on Carr and they drive through and they're not speeding, they're maybe doing 30, 35. Okay, I can look at that. Then they get to the turnaround or the dead end and now they're ticked.
Yeah,
And they have to turn around in the lady's driveway and they back up and they get out. Now they're ticked and this time they're speeding.
yeah.
I have grandkids that come. It could be a problem.
Got it. Well, thank you. I've got that written down, and that's something that we can, run through the process. That makes sense.
And I will call it tomorrow.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.
So I know everybody's kind of tired of talking about the water, but if we're going to attract new businesses to Hillsborough, can we support the new businesses that potentially would want to come here? With the situation being as it is, and are we losing potential businesses because our water system is so outdated?
That's a great question. Every potential new business that of size, right? If it's an attorney's office, we pretty well know we got that. But if it's a manufacturer or some kind of industrial prospect, as we're talking to them, one of the first questions we're asking is how much water do you need, and what at what rate? Some of them have volume pumping speed requirements as well as overall water use requirements. and we're evaluating those on a case-by-case basis. We did a water system analysis and improvement plan. So our engineers have done rate of flow studies throughout the city. So we're able to say, okay, if this is the location that you're looking at and these are your water needs, can we serve that or not? And, you know, there are some businesses that we can't serve, but the majority, you know, if we had another IKO, I think we'd probably say we're not the best location for you. But there are a lot of businesses that we've been talking with, and we're talking about significant development. So, there is a lot of economic development in the pipeline for which our water system, as currently operating, is going to be functional. Part of that is because the industrial park is served by a different water tower. So when you have a leak in the predominantly old pipe section of town, it doesn't affect that area. Part of it is that the industrial water tower is a higher pressure plane, so it's able to deliver a good volume, good rate of water. And then overall, you know, something that we talk about a lot at council meetings is how much water we have at all. So the water in Lake Whitney is, Lake Aquila is where all of our water comes from. All of that water is spoken for. We are working on getting the level of the lake raised, which is going to be a many-year, multi-step process that's going to cost a lot of money. But in the meantime, we are not using all of the water that we have the right to use. So we have the ability, as long as the pipes will handle it, we have the ability to provide water for a certain amount of new growth and development. And in a lot of those places where new businesses are coming, we're talking about new infrastructure that will be required to get to them. And so in that aspect, you're not putting more users onto a line that is faulty. You're talking about adding onto PVC lines that are in good shape.
Would adding more businesses to the outlet mall help with that? Help relieve some of that?
Anytime, I want to be careful about how I say this, because it can be easily misconstrued. Our first priority is taking care of the people and the businesses that we already have. When we talk about how valuable new development can be, there are a lot of promising things about that. There are a lot of great things about that. But our first duty and responsibility is to the people that are already here. So that is the standard. That said, new development is cheaper to take care of because it is new. So to the extent that the outlet mall, for example, which is basically right next to the college tower, that infrastructure is much newer. So if we have businesses or new development occupying space out there, it is less expensive for us to serve those than it is folks that are in the older parts of town. So when I say that, it's not that that kind of development is better. It's that as we talk about growth, we have the opportunity with some of that growth to have money to help us get in better balance.
And that's where my question was going. Having more businesses in the outlet mall would, yes, use more water, but it would add to the pot to reduce.
It would, and also, we pay for all of the water in our contract. Like, let's say we own 50% of the water in Lake Aquila, which is not correct, but let's say we do. We pay for every drop of that water. We pay more for the water that we use, but we even pay for the water that we don't use. So right now, we're using about 60% of the water that we pay for. If we were using and treating and billing 80% of the water that we pay for, the whole thing makes a lot more financial sense. Yes, ma'am.
Back to beautification.
Yes.
Observation.
Yes.
So, for Eclipseboro, there was effort to really dig in and make some headway in adding some beauty to Hillsborough. Since Hillsborough, it seems like we took 2 steps forward with Hillsborough, and it feels like we're just bouncing. Everything that was taken care of, and I was part of some committees that went out and cleaned up roads and whatever, those have all gone back to where they were. I drive around and I see yards that have weeds that are tall, and that is not to code. There are yards where there are 6 cars parked in the front yard, day in and day out. There is a specific property that's in my neighborhood that had a big tree that fell down, and they have probably a 6 by 10 foot pile on each side of their front yard that has been there since March. Since before, and I've emailed on it, I've called on it, it still sits there. I get it, it's a monumental task because there is a lot to do and a lot of people involved. But is there another way that we can look at how code enforcement is being looked at, how it's being enforced, something?
Yeah, so there may be, I'm gonna pick maybe 3 things out of what you said. And first, that is true. Let me just full stop saying, that is true. We made some improvements we've not been able to maintain. And so there are a handful of things. So I had a comment earlier today about houses that have messes on the front porch. And the person went on to describe the mess on the front porch. Some of the things that look untidy to the observer are not illegal. And I think we as the government want to be careful about how heavy-handed we are about regulating what is attractive. And overall, our codes are not meant to make things pretty, they're meant to make things safe, because that's sort of the common public purpose and standard. So there are some things that may look, in my opinion, terrible, and that every time I drive by, I go, oh my gosh, that's still there. But they're not actually against code. Parking in the front yard is not against code if improvements have been made to make that a parking area. So the code doesn't really give you a lot of ability to differentiate between somebody's circle drive and somebody's bunch of gravel that they've put sort of in their front yard.
Okay, how about just your front lawn?
If it's not on an improved surface, that is in violation of code, and it does go back to health and safety stuff. And so that's thing 1 is the difference between aesthetics and code. Thing 2 is, back to what we said earlier, just because you haven't seen the change doesn't mean that we haven't engaged with those folks. They may have received 4 citations. You know, we may have taken them to court already. There are a ton of different things that could explain an apparent lack of action where there's actually been action. Okay? But finally, sometimes the things we're trying are just not effective enough, and we need to try something else. And don't think that that's not also happening. Without getting into any weeds, please know that we're evaluating and going, is this working? Why is this not working? Because there are definitely those places where, maybe we're just not covering the same volume that we used to cover and need to look at allocating resources differently.
Here's a thought.
And we've had conversations in the last 2 weeks about that.
I would like it if the cars didn't park on the wrong side of the street.
Yes.
Because I was going down to Franklin at night, and he turned his lights on, and I about had a heart attack. Because he's on this side, and all of a sudden, it looks like I'm gonna be hit head on. So I do think that is code, right? You can't park going the wrong direction. Yes or no?
It's a traffic offense.
Is what?
Traffic offense.
Okay. Okay. So I just call you.
You've done that before.
Terry, do you have anything you'd like to add?
The main thing I want you all to know is that we're working on it, and we are trying to find things to address it.
When you're talking about beautification.
Beautification, code enforcement, we'll take this information that you're all giving us, and we'll let our officers know about it. So, I'm making you see an uptick in certain offenses.
Is there a certain email or a link on the website to report a problem that's easy to find?
I think it is, CE at Hillsborough So that goes to code enforcement. So let me get it.
Can you say one more time?
Let me make sure I get it right.
Okay.
So it's CE at Hillsborough TX.org.
Yes, ma'am.
The south side of town is growing with new houses and all that stuff. But on the one side, it's like code enforcement block. A guy across the alley from me put up a fence. It was in the middle of the alley. When I brought it up, I went out to the office and everything. And he came back and flashed his phone at me and said, yeah, I got a permit, and went like that. He never had anything posted there. He built his fence halfway down the middle of the alley, and nobody did anything about it, so an emergency vehicle could not get through there. And on my side is a gas, the main line gas marker. They couldn't get through there. They'd have to go all the way around the block and come around. And we had the alley legally abandoned. Did it right here. We went through planning and zoning and everything. And he just does whatever he wants. He added a second story to his house. Okay? No permits, no nothing. He just did it because he wants to. Now the guy across the street is starting a welding business in a residential area. And he's got the alley blocked about halfway down with vehicles and all that. He's building a 2-story big metal area, and when I found out what he was doing, he says, well, I'm gonna go ahead and do welding. And then one Sunday night and afternoon, he's got a big 18-wheeler trailer parked out there, and he's welding in the middle of the street on a Sunday. And I'm like, come on, where's your permits? Where's law enforcement driving around to see this happen and stopping to address it, asking him, what are you doing? And he just kind of like, well, I'm starting a new business, you know. Well, that's a residential area, and already had it rezoned for right there. He just does whatever they do, whatever they want. I wish code enforcement would at least confront them with, you can't just do what you want.
Yes, we will be happy to look into that. That is absolutely something that we can look into and follow on. So, will you call me?
I've already called and left a message with code enforcement, but of course he's not there.
Okay.
And I want to check it out.
I would like it if you would call me
Okay?
so that I can check on it and I've got a card. Can make sure. And that way I can just
And they can fix, I know a good friend,
Is it?
and they opened a business up in their residential area. Code enforcement did take care of it.
Is it that there are not enough people?
Outside of town, outside of town.
Are we just preaching to the choir that they just got all hands on deck and don't have enough people?
It is challenging to keep those positions adequately staffed. And it is an open question whether we have enough positions in that department, for sure. Generally speaking, well, there's a whole process involved. We didn't get too much detail. Tony, do you have anything to add?
Don't hesitate to call us. Our code enforcement personnel stay pretty busy, but at the same time, things do get dropped, so don't hesitate to give us a call.
Yeah. And we can, you know, over at admin, I can go check with the planning department about things like right-of-way abandonment and alley abandonment, and we can find out about permits. I mean, you know, so there are some things that we can do over at admin to help, so that by the time it gets to that, you know, overburdened code enforcement officer, we give it to them with enough information that it's actionable. So we can help.
I went over and talked to Richard, and he just said, well, that comes under code enforcement, not me. So, yeah, I got the runaround, and so far, this guy's, he was out there, he goes out every night, and he's welding and everything like that. And I'm like,
Thank you for letting me know. I have every confidence that our first line folks are taking great care of business. Every once in a while, if there's a thing that is just continuing not to get solved, it is not gonna burden me, it is not gonna burden Tony to hear from a citizen that there's been a hang-up somewhere. That is what we're here for.
All summer I thought, I'm gonna call Megan's office and invite her to come walk my block with me every morning. And then it got 105 degrees and I thought, I'm not gonna do that to her, just because I'm stupid and get out there and walk, that means she wants to. But that's what it's gonna take. Somebody, you or Tony or somebody is gonna have to come out there and walk and see what we're talking about.
We are happy to do that. We are
a
happy to do that.
It's a mess, and it's beautiful in that I see the occasional bobcat, or I see roadrunners, but it's getting trashy, and it didn't look like that when we moved in.
We are happy to engage and help get to a solution. Yes, sir.
This is a curiosity question. Buc-ee's, how many dollars is it generating for the city of Hillsville?
I don't know. And part of the reason, so
The city gets a percentage of the sales tax?
I tried to arm myself with as many numbers as possible of things that I expected people to ask, and eventually I just looked up and said,
Your best guess.
yeah, let's see, I need to calculate. So,
Does the city get a percentage of the sales tax that Buc-ee generates?
So, we gave them an incentive of sales tax rebate for a period of 10 years. So we get some but not all of their sales tax. Right now, we get all of it. It starts in January. So starting January 1st for 10 years, they get some of it rebated back to them. We get all of the property tax, and then we get all of the sales tax after 10 years.
But right now, is it 300,000 or 400,000? More?
Hang on,
It's just a curiosity question.
I'm gonna say $200,000 in property tax and something like $20,000 a month in sales tax.
I talked to somebody from the county and their figure was a lot higher than
For property tax or sales tax?
sales tax.
Okay. So again, I'm doing this based on memory and my phone calculator.
It's a curiosity.
And really, we don't know until we get the payments from the comptroller's office. And up until this point, we've been thinking we were gonna have to, turn around and rebate a portion of it, so we haven't been too excited about it. But we went back and looked at the contract and it doesn't kick in until January, so now we're happy again. So yeah, I'd be glad to put some numbers together and we can share those.
You can hear anything.
Yes.
I heard for the 15 days they were open a month, the county got 300,000, which they had to rebate back.
Well, their contract shouldn't be any different. Well, I don't know what their contract says.
I just wondered what they were generating for the city.
It is, yeah, I don't think the sales tax is that much. Over a year, it will be pretty significant, yeah. And we are keeping a portion of it, it's just not all.
I have another curiosity. Who owns the outlet mall?
A developer called Glazer Retail Partners owns about a third of it, and the city owns the other 2/3.
The city bought 2/3 of it?
Yes,
Where did that money come from?
we borrowed it from ourselves.
Okay.
Ultimately, we're gonna have to pay it back to ourselves, but we've avoided financing that purchase, partly because of interest rates. The developer has the ability to, or has agreed to buy it back from us at what we paid for it plus. And we anticipate that happening over the next couple, 3 years. And so the hope is, can we hold off without paying debt service on that
What do we
as
pay?
long as possible? I do not remember.
Oh, man,
There are a lot
Best
of
guess,
numbers.
best guess.
I don't wanna guess. I
I'll
could
take
be,
a guess.
if I know that,
You'll be
but
quoted.
I am in a public meeting and any guess that I make is wildly wrong,
Yeah.
like, that's just irresponsible.
Is it the whole outlet mall or just half of it? I can never.
So what we and the developer together bought the whole outlet mall.
Okay.
He owns the 300 feet in a strip along the service road.
Okay.
We own the rear property. And the kind of worst case, best case, right, is that we hold on to the back of the north side because at some point, H-E-B is gonna be ready to come here. Or another big new grocery store, H-E-B or somebody. They're not ready to come here yet, but if they were, we would not have a place to put them. So one of the big challenges in development is land assembly. That is a place where an H-E-B would go. If we've got it ready to go, then they can come as soon as they're ready to contemplate it, instead of spending 5 to 10 years assembling land.
You think H-E-B will come to the size city of Hillsborough?
No. No, we've established, and let me say for the record, H-E-B will not come to Hillsborough right now. Absolutely will not come to Hillsborough right now, has never tried to come to Hillsborough, we have never turned them down, we have never refused to work with them. They have never offered to come to Hillsborough. But, Mr. Cole, we currently have 2,900, 3,000 single-family houses on the ground right now. We have 1,700 in the pipeline. If those deliver over 10 years, that's 60% growth in 10 years. Yeah, I think H-E-B will come. And when they're ready, we would like to also be ready. That doesn't mean that if there's a good bird in the hand use for that property in the meantime, that we wouldn't consider it. But one of the things that we do periodically is we ask the people of this community what their top priorities are, and people have pretty consistently said, we want another grocery store. Like, it is at the very, very top of the list. And so we would have to be very sure that what we were getting in the short term was super good to be willing to give up the site for a grocery store without another site, without a plan B. And there's not a great plan B. It's gonna be a long time before we have continuous service roads on both sides of the interstate, running south of town and north of town, you know, at that point, that will open up a lot more land for development, but, you know, that's gonna be a long time before TxDOT's willing to contemplate that work.
Could you get me that figure on what we pay for them all?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Yes, sir.
Would you happen to know what's going on with the Valero gas station? It looks like that's pretty much been abandoned.
You talking about the one over kind of across from Buc-ee's? I heard today that there's another ownership group. So we had a lot of conversations with the guy that started the project initially. We heard that he was in ill health. I saw somewhere that he had passed away. There was another company that took over it and began to do something, and then they sold it again. There is a new ownership group, and my understanding, and Tony was in that meeting, so he can correct me if I misremember. That ownership group is the group that owns the Tiger Mart here in town along the interstate. And so that group is going to continue the process. So the first guy who ended up in ill health went through several different contractors. So the start and stop and start and stop and start and stop was mostly under his ownership of the project. Since then, I think it's had two different owners, but from what we understand, they're back getting started.
Could you give us an update on the library?
The library has had a couple of different back to the drawing board, let's make this a little bit less expensive conversations. I understand there's a board meeting next week. Fundraising still continues.
The private, not private, but the outside fundraising is still working.
Yes,
Do you know where they are?
I would say they don't have enough money to start the project yet.
They were gonna raise $3 million, right?
I think so, and I think they've got most of that raised. Unfortunately, I think the project is gonna still have a little bit of a gap.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
And what is the status of that corner property at 22 and 35, where the 7-Eleven was? I know they went in and dug up the tanks, but the building's all boarded up and.
Your guess is as good as mine, so the question
I'm
is.
supposed to know all the answers.
Well, and this is the thing, right? If it's private property,
Yeah.
and you sell it to Dave, Dave can do what he wants to with it, unless he needs me to rezone it, he doesn't have to tell me.
Right. Yeah, just like to know.
Yes, ma'am.
As far as beautification and the library, because our businesses are there, we live there, I would like to get the mowing situation fixed.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes, I agree.
They will mow it one time, different people, they actually mowed it with a weed eater, the entire thing. One of the last times, they mowed it, grass everywhere, and I said, now, you're not mowing this out on the street, are you? Because I have to pick it up. And he said, no, I don't do anything, I leave it. And it just stayed there. And all of that is in big piles in Brookshire parking lot. Which to me is like, they let us park there, and I go through and pick up the trash in Brookshire parking lot every day as a thank you for them letting us park the customers there and everything else. But the lawn is a real problem. And so,
Thank you.
if we're gonna go with $3 million or more thing, I think maybe we can afford,
So there won't be any long.
I think if we're planning on that, we could afford a nice lawn back. That's all.
Well, if we own it, we need to take proper care of it.
Thank you.
And we need to take care of it at the level that we would expect anybody else to. Which means we can't let our grass clippings go into the street.
I was thinking about taking up the mowing myself, you know.
In the state of Texas, and I'm coming from another state, we've got a different perspective. Is it illegal in the state of Texas to blow your grass clippings into the road and leave them. Because where I come from, it is a big ticket, and if the police see, they will stop and give the homeowner a ticket. So I don't know if it's illegal or not here. But if it's not, it should be.
It is illegal in the city of Hillsborough.
Because it's dangerous.
I don't know whether that's a state law or not, but
It's
it's
dangerous, it's slippery and slide motorcycles, bicycles. I saw a kid riding down my street on an electric bicycle. Had there been grass there and he could have gotten hurt. And no, oh, that's, there you go. I can't fix that.
Yes, ma'am.
Question. Is there a way, just to remind me that when she said trash, is there a way to have a standard trash can for recycle that has a lid and one for regular trash that has a lid? So that trash isn't just blowing all over the city when people put it out?
There has been a lively online discussion about that. The city currently has gone out for bids for a trash service provider. We have not gone out for bids for a trash service provider in 25 years. We have had that contract with the same company for that long. And so there are things about our service that are kind of, that's not the way people are necessarily doing it. We have asked responders to our solicitation to tell us whether they would provide cart service and what that would cost, or whether they would continue to provide the same kind of service we have now and what that would cost. The advantages of cart service, that the cart is provided by the trash company. You would have one for trash and one for recycle. They would have wheels on them, they have lids. It standardizes everything. There's a lot of concern in the kind of online conversation that I've seen just around, what those things would cost and whether that would be burdensome for residential ratepayers. I don't know that it would be more expensive to have cart service. So in the short term, we just need to let the bids come back and evaluate the different kinds of service and see what we think those options look like and how attractive they are. I will tell you from the city's perspective, a lot of trash blows, particularly out of the recycle, because there's paper in there. And what people perceive as litter and people throwing stuff out, a lot of it is things that are blowing that were just put out with the trash, because a lot of those containers don't have lids, or they're not very big, and so, your random stray dog or whatever can, it's just a huge contributor to the mess. Cart service has a lot to recommend itself from a beautification standpoint.
And those are the big trash bins that they actually dump the curbs, actually pick that up and dump it. So
Yes.
I've seen that.
Yes. And I'll say, there's concern about does that displace jobs and stuff like that, and maybe to a certain extent, but where we've had interruptions in our trash service, they haven't come or whatever, and they let us know, a lot of the time it's labor related. We didn't have a full crew come to work today, and so we're not able to run the route, and that has impacts down the line. So there's pluses and minuses. Yes, sir.
It says grill, the city.
Mr. Cole, I am there for it.
Old Brandon Road.
Yes.
Is it gonna be finished?
Yes. How healthy are you? You feel
Is there a
good?
deadline? Is there somewhere down the road?
There's a deadline. The problem is the deadline was 600 days, and it's a 4-street project. They are 60% through they are 60% through with their days. They are 55% through with their completion in terms of how much money they've drawn down. So they've finished 55% of the work in 60% of the time. So technically they're a little behind, but they're not wildly behind. I share your extreme frustration. We thought Old Brandon Road was going to be done this spring. In terms of the things that have extended the timeline, we won't even talk about monsoon season. We did add the section from Highland Drive to the service road. That wasn't originally in the project, but when we got the bids back and split everything between water and sewer and streets, we had enough money to add that section and not leave it out, which we thought was, by far the best, since it was a choice, we thought it was best. So then they had to go back and add that engineering and surveying and all that section. So that section is the thing that's holding them up now. They started demo this week. They're supposed to be putting in their PUD base next week and the week after that. They are hoping to mill and overlay the week of, I'm gonna say October 9th, give or take a couple of weeks, due to the scheduling of the paving subcontractor.
So we're just not waiting on asphalt, there's more work to be done.
Oh yes, there is more work to be done. They need to install the ribbon curb, and there are a lot of new driveways in that added block that go into businesses and stuff that are in relatively good shape. And so rather than cutting out those driveways to install the ribbon curb, they're working around them, which involves a lot more staking and a lot more survey to get the grades exactly right. But it makes sense, you don't want to cut up all that concrete. So, but it means more measurement, more calculation at the beginning of the project, and the measuring and calculating part doesn't involve people standing out on the street doing stuff, and so it looks like nothing's happening when in fact necessary work is being done.
When that was all torn up, Oak College was using that road for their runners, their marathon runners and that cross-country runners. And I came down there one day with those kids in and out of ditches. They didn't know. I called the college, I said, maybe we should pick a different street.
Yeah.
And so they did. So, yeah, it was bad.
What else, you guys? I know there's other stuff that's bothering you. Yes, sir.
So my name is Alejandro Rodriguez. I'm a member of the HSA board for esports. I'm particularly over the baseball program that we have here. And and I know Chief Kane probably got to hear out now because I wanted to talk about water sport. We've been hosting meetings there since I was 12 years old. That park is pretty old. And of course you mentioned monsoon season. It's pretty tough to maintain, keep it all maintained and everything like that. And the only reason I'm here in this format is because I don't want to say I'm here representing HSA and spokesperson for HSA, but I'm also concerned from the citizens that visit the park all year long with the concerns they had. I felt that I didn't know that all the information was getting to from our liaison HSA to Chief King and up to you guys. The condition of the fields are getting the water line unsafe for the players, for the kids. We have about over 300 kids every summer playing baseball there. And we got towns coming from all the way to Mayboro west. Everybody comes to visit our park. This summer alone, we hosted 4 tournaments from the end of June until July 13th. The state tournament we hosted, we had over 26 teams, and just to guesstimate, 300 to 400 people came to that park the whole week.
Yeah.
And a lot of the things that, the maintenance of the fields, the grass, the mowing and stuff like that, all season long was a concern. I understand, labor and the being able to work on the field and stuff like that was, limits that, but it seemed like the effort wasn't being made. When it was opportunities to take care of that stuff, it wasn't being made. I'm not here to bash your employees or bash the people that work at the park. And I understand they got a 3-man, 4-man crew, whatever it is, but it's optics, right? When there's citizens that go to the park and they see the grass looking like that, and there's nobody even working on a nice sunny day, right? Those kind of things that just doesn't look good, in my eyes. Those 2 concerns we had as trying to be the liaison, we take the brunt of it, right? Because we're the ones running the parks and everything like that, and we don't want to bash you guys, and I understand what it takes to maintain that kind of stuff. We're in contracts with the city. HSA pays money for profit. We pay for the services that you guys provide, utilities and everything like that. And sometimes it feels like we're not getting delivered on something that we would want it to be. The services that we were paying for were not being done. It's always a struggle make sure that the fields were prepared, and we can play over and things like that. The new lights are awesome. Unfortunately, there was one field 1, there was, in June, 1st of June, the light stopped working on that field, it was reported, I don't know how far it got reported to, or to Chief Kane, or to, I don't know who it went to, because I wasn't the liaison at the time. But it took until July 11th for those lights to get fixed, things like that. So I guess my question would be, is there any plan, is there any discussion, is it even on the budget radar to invest some money into those fields? Because not only we use it for baseball, we use the soccer fields for soccer, which is starting up soon. And we have over 300 kids signed up for that too. The more I feel if we don't invest into it, our kids are not going to have somewhere to be able to play those fields, because those fields are going to get to the point where they're unsafe to play.
So first, thank you so much for your volunteer service with HSA. There are so many kids that are impacted by the youth sports program that HSA provides. That's just a huge quality of life benefit for people who live in Hillsborough. It is important, our partnership, and HSA is a financial contributor, but by no means is HSA paying for the work that we do. The tax dollars pay for, by far, the majority of the expenses out there. And it has been really, really frustrating with street work and some of the other contract work, as well as with mowing, because as wet as it was from January through the middle of June, you would have sunny days. But there's a lot of Wallace Park that floods and stays flooded. And even though you have sunny days, the water table is so high that you start walking out there and you're squishing and it hasn't rained in 3 or 4 days. So there has been a lot of the time that we've had conversations with Parks and Rec staff. It looks like you could mow and we've been out there and you can't. So I would say we had a tough year to get anything done outside. Thank heaven we're done with El Nino for a while, and we're going to have different conditions to deal with. But the bigger question, and that's, we talked, I'm not sure if you were here when we talked about this earlier, but there are definitely times when what we're doing isn't getting it. And we are definitely open to and having conversations about whether we need additional resources or whether we need to try a different process or whatever to get a different result. But I think your overall question is, where are we going with this thing? And are we going to take care of it now, or are we going to run it into the ground? And the answer is, we're going to take care of it now, but we're not going to be knee-jerk and reactive about it. There are a lot of things out of Wallace Park that need a lot of money. A lot of money. Those restrooms there are a lot of things about that facility that need a lot of money. There is a significant amount of Wallace Park that regularly floods. We don't need to spend a significant amount of money out there without doing a study and having some engineers tell us what needs to be done about the flooding and what impact that could have about the layout of facilities at the park. Once we understand that, is there some area that we could do a little dirt work and have more usable area? How would that change the location of where the restrooms and concession stand need to be? So we had an engineering firm come out and take a look and give us an estimate. A master plan for Wallace Park would cost about $45,000. We're in the process. Did we apply? We haven't applied. We're applying in a couple of days. We're so close. We are applying for $300,000 in grant funds for comprehensive planning. And we need more than $300,000 worth of planning, probably more like about $4 million. But if we can get $300,000 to put towards our $400,000 worth of planning, our goal is within the next 2 years to do a master plan of Wallace Park that would help us figure out what those improvements need to look like. And then once we have that plan in place, we're eligible to apply for grants funding from Texas Parks and Wildlife. They have 2 different community facilities programs that would help us do some of those improvements. But I don't want us to haul off and respond to a short-term problem when we need a long-term plan.
And that makes sense. Like, that is a question there. on the board that we could relate to the community, right? All they saw was what they saw. You know, all the games that got canceled, which is really bad. I mean, there was field one, and that's probably the worst condition that field, that's one game played on all season long, because of the condition, the flooding that happened, and then also allowing it to stay that way for so long is better than worse, right? And I can understand the focus with the staffing. You know, another thing that I think could probably be an immediate fix is the water leaks, right? There's a water leak by field 3 that the grass is this tall and nobody's ever fixed the water leak. So, you know, me as a citizen and citizens are like, don't we have a water department? Why couldn't the water department, why can't we use our resources that the city has to maintain those little things, those little efforts that would probably relieve a little bit of the concerns that the parents have, but, you know, as for baseball wise, if there is plans in place and we can make it, I would hate to see that not be an option for so many kids. You know, I do this totally volunteer, I have 0 kids, I have no kids that participate. I actually do it for the kids that are in schools. So, just some kind of effort. The planning, that's exactly, I mean, it's good. You're having this because I did not know.
Yes, sir, and you mentioned about the lights. The reason it took a while to get those lights fixed is because we had to call the company that did the project and have them come back out and fix it. I know you guys have more questions. Yes, sir.
Last one.
Don't let me down, yeah.
I have one. You mentioned it earlier about code and parking in the front yard. I can go to my house right now and park in the front yard. Code can come by and say that's not approved. I can throw a small load of gravel underneath it, and it's code. It passes code. My point is, y'all need to change the code. The city council needs to change the code. Because if you go up to the house, that's all they gotta do is throw a little gravel. I'm talking about 3 or 4 wheelbarrows full of gravel, and it meets code. So that code needs to be changed.
And that is a great point. So I am happy to answer as many questions as I possibly can, right? But at the end of the day, I just work here. I don't set policy, I don't set vision, I don't set direction. The policies are set by the city council because they're supposed to reflect what our goals are as a community. And if we as a community want to have the least invasive government possible, that results in one set of codes. If we want to control a little bit more than that, if we want to set some standards and say, everywhere in town, you need to not park in the front yard, period. That's a policy decision. I think, you know, we've got a council member here, the mayor was here a minute ago. I think if city council wants to take that up, or planning and zoning, staff is gonna salute smartly and execute.
You know, what if you live next to it?
I have no comment, sir.
It needs to be
She's
changed.
saying go to your city council, go to the council.
I'm saying that's absolutely something that can be taken up.
No, she's on
City
city council.
manager.
She's on city council. They'll be the ones to make those.
We're happy to take it to council.
I know it's code, that code needs to be changed.
Yes,
And
but
some-
we're happy to
some
take it
cities
to
around
council
here-
to change the code. Council can change the code.
Has, some city around here has a code that addresses that.
Yes, I'm quite sure it does.
You know, I'd hate to live next door to it.
Yes, sir. What we can do is we can put on a council agenda and just ask the council if this is something they want staff to explore.
I appreciate it.
And then council can say, yes, go forth and explore and get some sample ordinances from other places, or they can say, no, we're happy with it just the way it is, and we'll happily do whatever. But yeah, we can put it on the agenda and see what they say. Yes, sir.
What are some other projects other than Wallace Park and improving the water that you guys have planned for 2025?
Okay, So there are very few projects that will fit in a year. Certainly we want to get the 4 streets done, Old Brand Road, Walnut Park, Church. Church is going to be terrible. Of the 4 streets in that project, Church is by far the gnarliest. It has the most buried utilities underneath it. It's there in downtown. It's on the way to everything. Church is the gnarliest. So that would be number 1. Let's get through Church Street. We really need to begin executing the city direct executed portion of our street improvement program. So the overall street improvement program is to do the high complexity jobs with outside contractors. And the low complexity jobs, city performed. We've had a series of unfortunate events, really, that have gotten in the way of us doing blocks of street self-performed. Until we unlock that level, we're not going to make real progress. I mean, this 4 street project that we've had is going to end up being a 4-year project by the time we spend all the engineering and all of the execution and all of the implementation. That gets us, you know, if we do another 4 streets the next 4 years and another 4 streets the next 4 years, they're deteriorating faster than that's going to bring them up. We have to do blocks and blocks and blocks ourselves. In 2025, we need to do some blocks of streets. That process, we have figured out what it needs to look like. Now we're working through the implementation, right? We've done strategy and now it's the tactics. The next set of problems that we need a real dedicated strategy for is water, and we are most of the way there. Once we figure out what we're going to get or not get from Texas Water Development Board, we can begin to divide between what we can contract out and what we can do ourselves. Starting in October, I started to tell you guys something that I forgot about. I'm going to come back to that. No, I didn't. Never mind. I was talking about the radio transmitters. It's okay. It's been a long day. I'm just talking about the radio transmitters. But water, once we know how much money we're going to get, if any, from Texas Water Development Board, then we can know how big a chunk we can take off on and start putting that. And then we'll look at the new crew that we're hiring starting in October, going through and replacing water lines. We're a ways from being able, and because we haven't really started chewing up blocks of street and city forces yet, I can't yet tell you whether the resources that we have are going to be improving it fast enough to make an overall improvement. Because there's a deterioration curve at the same time we're improving. At some point, we've got to be improving faster than the rate of deterioration for us to make progress. That's until we have that number in a level that we can predict with, we can't budget and plan. So figuring that out is thing 1 with the streets, and we're most of the way there. With water, it's thing 2. After that is wastewater. We have kicked off engineering work to assess our wastewater situation, particularly when it's been so wet and the water has stood in areas. There are places where the wastewater system has become overwhelmed. So the wastewater system, if those pipes get cracks in them, the wastewater doesn't go anywhere. It's not under pressure. It's not like it's, bubbling up onto the street or anything, but rainwater is getting in. And so what happens when we have those big rain events over time, particularly in a low-lying area, tons and tons of water gets into the wastewater system that then can overwhelm the system downstream. And then you can see a manhole cut on, you can see wastewater going into private property, and that's an everybody out of the pool situation. We need to figure that out. In some cases, it's harder than you would think. So we are doing a system-wide evaluation, and this will be part of the comprehensive plan we talked about, where we're seeking outside funds to help pay for some of these studies. A system-wide evaluation of the wastewater system so that we know where are we taking in this infiltration and inflow that is having an impact not only on our customers and the reliability of our wastewater service, but it's having an impact on our wastewater treatment plant. Because then that increases the volume of what we're trying to process at the plant. That's a huge issue and a huge expense. Streets, water, wastewater, after we figure out wastewater, and again, guys, these are gonna be 20-year fixes. Figuring it out doesn't solve it, but we have to figure out what we're gonna spend 20 years working on. So streets, water, wastewater, after that, we need to look at drainage. And drainage is a whole system-wide thing that if you, again, like you don't want to haul off and go do a thing at Wallace Park because it might not be in the service of your long-term needs. In drainage, if you do something ill-advised in the middle of the system, you're going to create a world of hurt either upstream or downstream. So you have to look at the entire system. But we've got areas of town that in this last year with this incredible El Nino season that we had, flooded that have never flooded before, and you've got private property being impacted, you've got passability of streets being impacted. So this is not a thing that we have looked at system-wide in a long time, if ever, but we have to take that on. So this is probably not what you meant, but these are the things that we're working on. In addition, talked about the 1,600 to 1,700 new single-family houses that are in the pipeline. We can't let the developers, even though what they're building is beautiful, we can't let the developers tell us how Hillsborough is going to change. We have to do the calculations for each of those proposed developments and push back and say, no, that street needs to be wider. No, you need a traffic light here. No, you're going to cause traffic impact to this block over here, and you need to pay for that. We've got to get out in front of that development, and not just with emotionally, do we want this or do we like this, but financially, what burden or help is this going to create for the rest of our system? Guys, that's not a problem we've had, maybe ever before. The development that's coming in south of the intermediate school is going to be something like 500 units. Phase 1 is 160 units. Phase 1, I think, will be the largest spec development in our history, right? And that's just the beginning. We've not had to figure this out before. We are needing to figure it out in early. So we are sending folks to training. We are hiring professionals. We are engaging in this process in a lot of ways. Over 2025, you're going to see us implement impact fees, which are fees to new development that charge them for the impact that their development is going to have on infrastructure elsewhere. So that 500 unit development may come faster than we'll be able to have something on the ground, but the next one will be ready. Putting together impact fees, starting the comprehensive planning process. We expect to hear from the developer on the first round of businesses for the outlet mall, hopefully next month. I know that they're excited about drawing down the next set of land from us for the outlet mall, so we're going to have some decisions to make about that. Obviously, we'd like to get our money back, so that would be a powerful incentive, but we also want to make sure that what we're getting is something we're excited about. There is a lot of potential industrial development to the north of town. There have been some negotiations going on for the last couple of years. There have recently been approval to draft contract terms. Economic development is that thing where, like, I can tell you, but I'd have to kill you. Everything is under a non-disclosure agreement. And you work on 20 projects and 1 or 2 of them actually close. That's just how it is. But the amount of activity and the level of business, like the zeros involved, this is not like anything that we've ever seen before. And every time we have one of those, like, oh my gosh, this is a huge deal. The deal that comes after that is bigger. So it is an exciting time, and sooner or later, one of those things is gonna make. That's gonna involve infrastructure. Having a comprehensive plan in place is gonna make sure that we, are confident about what that infrastructure needs to look like. You know, we're doing little things. You know, we're making a few more modest improvements down the pavilion at the corner of 22 and Waco Street. You know, we've got Autumn Fest coming up. You know, we try to have a good balance between these big 20-year problems that cost millions of dollars and take forever to fix, and places where we can spend $10,000 to make life better. Here and there, we can do that. But if you do too much of that, then you're hampering your ability to do the big things. So it's a balance.
I have a question.
I think he was first.
Oh, I'm sorry.
It's okay.
Yeah, question. I've been having water draining issues in front of my house, across the street, and it rains, it just makes a huge pile of water up there.
Yeah.
It doesn't go down like this.
What street do you live
I
on?
live on 123 Williamson Street.
Williamson Street.
Yeah, and now I think it's gonna get worse because the neighbor, built part of that small village with gravel.
Oh, no.
And so they decided to make an extra driveway because they rented a small room in the back, separately from the main house.
Yeah, oh, no.
That needs to go, or it's a city ordinance or something, I don't know if they did it right.
That's actually a state law. So yeah, we yes, sir. Well, if you'll get with me or with Tony, either one. But I've got a card. If you want to give me a call tomorrow, I'll get the address and we'll. Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
A couple months ago, I'm driving down, I don't remember the name, by the hospital.
Yes.
Big sign, across the street from the hospital about this apartment complex that's coming. And they're out there and they're tearing down trees and da. Sign's gone, they haven't done anything. Tell me, please tell me that they're not gonna put a apartment complex out there.
So I don't know a lot about the current design. I don't know a lot about the current design of what is planned there. What I know is that it is not a large piece of property.
No, it is not.
So to the extent that apartments were contemplated, we're talking about like 12, not like 200. As far as I know, the property owner is still hoping to put in some apartments there. Yes, ma'am.
Can you tell us if we have anything coming to downtown? Like, is there anything new opening downtown or happening?
Sure. I mean, so the Bouncy House place just opened. Joe Dennison, who put that in, is working on a venue. Where are we? Like, just right down there. So that will be more of an adult entertainment. I know adult entertainment. That's a scary term. Like food trucks and maybe cocktails. Let me be more specific. Rooftop seating area, that kind of thing. Two buildings downtown have sold. Actually, 3 buildings have sold. One of them is going to be sort of an office, and then the other 2, I know one of those is being looked at for a restaurant, and I'm not sure what the use is for the building that was the Axe House.
There's a distillery.
There is a distillery planned on Elm, and I have heard that there is a winery craft beer business together, right? But I have not talked to those people directly. The other people I have. What else, you guys?
Margarita. I'm ready.
Are you offering? Yes, ma'am.
Give some feedback on it.
Please.
This summer, the yard and all the bands that Lynette booked, awesome.
Yeah.
Like, that was fantastic. If you could do that all again next summer, something, that'd be great. I mean,
She left the room.
I know, I know. I told her.
Well, so we are proud of our partnership with the chamber and incredibly proud of them for what they have done with this series. We have a contract with the chamber and use hotel occupancy dollars to fund some of their activities that are tourism related or that would encourage people to visit Hillsborough. This is one of those places where we can invest a few $1,000s, not enough to pave one street, not enough to have somebody come in and just chip seal the top of one block, okay? But enough to subsidize these bands to come in all summer long. And it, makes a big difference. So thank you very much for that feedback. That helps us know that we're trying to get that balance right.
The movies in the park thing is a good thing too. I know my grandson comes up sometimes to watch it, and those are good family things that people can enjoy.
Thank you. Younger folks, do any of you have any questions? They're like, if we're really quiet, maybe this will be over.
We're just here to support you and give a smile.
Thank you.
They're always quiet.
Y'all, I'm happy to stay and answer more questions, but if you're plumb out, yes, sir.
Could you is it in the We're good.
Okay. Yes, ma'am.
So is it so if you're doing right on the curb, is that so if the lawn and stuff, is that the person's property or is it the city's?
So there are two kinds of property. Well, there's a bunch of kinds of property, right? But the street, the property where the street is the city's property, but it's called a right of way. The right of way goes into people's yards, and call it the first, say, 8 or 10 feet. If there's a sidewalk, the sidewalk is in the right of way. The city doesn't own that property. We couldn't go build a house there. We couldn't go put my office there. We can't use that like we can use regular property that we own. So in that sense, it's not the property owner's property, but it's not the city's property to use and maintain either. We've all agreed that that's a right of way where people can travel from one property to another without trespassing. The way that it's all set up, the city maintains the street and the property owner maintains to the street. And that's how we take care of all of that space. Because if we had to have enough city employees to mow and weed and take care of that little strip in front of everybody's house for every property in town, we'd have to have a lot more employees than we have now, and that would be way more expensive. So kind of the way that we as a community share that work is everybody pitches in for the city to pay for things that a property owner can't do. Like you can't go and fix a pothole in front of your house. You certainly can't go and dig up the street and build a new street just in front of your house. So the things that we have to share, that's where we take taxes and pay for those things. But the things where it just makes sense for everybody to do their own, it's a lot simpler not to tax for that work.
Could the city use that to widen the street or something?
They could, if they needed to.
Good question.
I was thinking about it, she was saying that sidewalks. Because I know Elm Street has very little sidewalk and it's very dangerous on Elm Street.
Or Franklin.
Yeah,
So-
same. But there's no sidewalk for kids to walk.
Sidewalks are did you see my shoulders do this?
Yeah.
So the thing is, right, sidewalks are not the city's responsibility. technically they're the property owners to maintain, even though they're in the right of way. I think this is just me as a private staff person, I'm not speaking for the city of Hillsborough. I think that's really challenging because you need a reliable transportation infrastructure for walkers just like you do for cars. Remember when we talked about streets and then water and then sewer and then drainage? Like 5 or 6 levels down, I think we need to come up with we call it an active transportation plan. That is people walking or biking. We need to come up with an active transportation plan for the city that says we cannot afford to build and maintain at the city's expense sidewalks everywhere. And if we put them in, the property owners wouldn't be able to afford to maintain them. But I think it makes sense as a city to solve pedestrian transportation the way the country solved vehicle transportation, to have a system where there's like an interstate highway, you know, where every 3 or 4 east-west streets, where you've got a major street, that street has a sidewalk all the way, and then you can get to it. So we say, these are the 8 streets in town where the city is gonna maintain sidewalks as a public good, and everywhere else, this is how you get there. And in some cases where the street is wide enough, you can strike like a bike pedestrian lane over on one side, and you have to not have people parking there and stuff. But I'm sorry, that may or may not have answered your question.
Well, there is one house on Elm, the yard goes all the way to the street, so it's lawn to the street.
Yeah.
But they put signs out, please do not walk on the grass.
Yeah, again, that's
I know, but the
Yeah,
kids,
that's not their
so
choice.
that's why when the kids come down, you'll see them, they'll step into the street and then get beyond their yard and go back up. But they actually have signs, no.
Elm Street can be dangerous. I mean, there's the speed limit on Franklin.
But anyway, probably,
And that's the way they have the right to walk.
I know they do. I
I
don't
don't
know.
That goes right back to the street, the house at the end of the street where they've got private property. You can't walk. And more real estate sites and rental sites and are doing walkability schools. We don't score real high in walkability.
Yeah, which is hysterical because we ought to be pretty walkable. We're small enough that you can physically get to places, but we don't have great infrastructure for it.
Right.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
Would it be against the city's law if people would go fill potholes up in the road?
It would not be against the law, but it might not help all that much. It probably wouldn't hurt all that much.
What would you personally fill them with? That's the question. There you go.
All right, we're in danger of wrapping up, folks. All right. Thank you, everybody. I know you're here because you care about this community. Thank you very much for your time.